Hello there, people of the internet. Every time I make a video like this, I get a bunch of people typing angrily down in the comments telling me about how wrong I am. And I understand that. We all have our own opinions and whatnot. But I think the logic behind my opinion, if you stop to actually listen to what I have to say versus just reading the title of a video and then going down into the comments and typing your angry comment about how wrong I am, I feel like the logic behind what it is that I'm actually saying has some merit behind it. So hear me out on this one. I feel like your 357/38 special revolver is the best handgun for the average person. And I realize that right there is a massive step. That's a massive claim. It's a very bold claim. But that being said, like I said, I think there's some merit to it. Normally, whenever people ask, hey, I want to get my first handgun, what do I get? I would recommend, like, a very basic, bottom of the barrel, bare bones Glock. Like, go out and get yourself a Glock 19, Glock 17, or what are you using it for? Oh, bare defense, maybe getting something in 10mm might be the way to go. But whenever I'm telling people about something like that, whenever somebody is inquiring about getting a handgun to the point to where they want a quote-unquote expert's advice, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but compared to the average person, I like to think that I know a little bit more about firearms than your average Joe. But whenever they ask someone who is, they believe, more qualified to give them better information than they would be able to find on their own, those types of people tend to be willing to go out and train and practice with their firearm, and that's one of the reasons why I tend to suggest something like a Glock. However, the average person is not a hardcore gun guy. The average person doesn't train with firearms. Many of your average people haven't even shot guns before, and they have no idea mechanically how they actually function. However, that being said, everybody has the right to keep themselves safe, even if they're not a gun guy. If they go out and get themselves a firearm, of course, I always advocate getting as much training as possible. Most people aren't going to do that, though, and that crowd of most people that aren't going to do that still deserve to keep themselves safe. So if they're going to go out and get themselves a firearm to basically do nothing with, like most of your people who go out and buy guns, they're going to have them come home, sit in a closet, sit in a drawer. Maybe they'll take them out for a single training class, so they'll have someone show them how they work once, maybe twice. But whenever push comes to shove, that training course that you took 4 years ago for the handgun that's still sitting in your junk drawer, that information, I'm sure, has been long gone. A lot of people who don't necessarily know a lot about firearms don't know. They don't have the muscle memory to be able to reliably take off a safety in, say, the heat of the moment if something is going down that has gotten people put into the dirt before. They don't know necessarily that they have to chamber around. They shove the magazine inside of the firearm and think that it's ready to go. I have seen that a tremendous number of times with new shooters. The amount of people who I have shown, hey, you have to chamber a round by cycling a slide on a magazine, I've shown them that, and they understand it, and then they come back, say, 6 months later, and then they completely forgot about it, just because time had passed and it's not their priority to retain that information because they're not gun people. For people like that who don't fundamentally know how to work a semi-automatic, especially one with a safety, especially in a stressful situation, having something like your 357/38 revolver would be ideal. Because something like this, you don't have to worry about racking a slide, you don't have to worry about a manual safety. The safety is built into the trigger with a transfer bar. We're not going to get into that. That's probably something I should make on a separate video. But you don't have to worry about a lot of the things that you would normally have to worry about with a self-loading firearm. Let's say they went out and got themselves a 1911. 1911s are great little handguns, but the 1911 is a single action only handgun. I have seen in Hollywood movies, supposedly things directed by people who are experts in firearms, they'll depict a 1911 firing, but the hammer's down, and I'm like, haha, that's not gonna fire because that's single action only. if Hollywood experts, quote unquote experts, don't know single action requires you to cock the hammer back, then somebody who had this gun in their drawer from 4 years ago that they never really learned anything about, they're not going to know how to operate that thing. If you go out and get yourself, just going to go ahead and make sure you guys know that this right here is clear. If you go out and get yourself a double action, single action revolver, then all you have to do is make sure there's rounds inside of those chambers, pick that out of your junk drawer, start pulling the trigger, and whatever is in front of you is going to go down. And you know that you're out of ammo whenever the banging stops, and you can open this up and you can see the spent rounds, and you can very easily knock those bastards out. And then you just grab, most people in this situation are not going to have speed loaders, you just grab your next round and you start sticking them in to your cylinder. It's very easy to understand how to work something like this to the point to where people with no training will be able to figure it out. And I've seen that on several instances. People can just figure out how these things work because of how simple they are, versus something like a semi-auto, which takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort and a little bit of brain cells to be able to rub together to be able to figure out that you have to chamber around and disconnect your safety. And most people are just incapable of doing that, especially since most people are not going to go out and get their firearms training. Now, the reason why I say 38 Special / 357 Magnum for the average person is because if this average person wants to learn more about their particular firearm, they can learn the difference between 357 and 38. 357 has a fair amount of power that should be able to put down most of the things that you're going to find here in, say, North America, or rather just on this side of the planet. If you're going on an African safari, you might want something a little bit bigger, but again, the average person is not going to be doing that. So 357, that's powerful enough to put down basically anything. Even if you want to take your one singular firearm out hunting, you can go handgun hunting, and 357 is powerful enough to put down whatever boar, deer, pig it is that you might come across, unless you're trying to shoot at real long ranges, in which case go out and get yourself a rifle. But again, the average person isn't making really long range shots. The average person can't really hit anything beyond 100 yards. And whenever I say that, people are like, no, you're completely wrong. I see people shoot at 100 yards regularly. The average person has never even touched a gun, so no, the average person cannot shoot at 100 yards. You give someone, like the average person who's never touched a gun, you give them, say, an AR with a red dot, one of the easiest firearms to shoot, and they get pie plate accuracy at, say, 25 yards. So my statement stands. But you got the power and whatnot, but you can also swap over to 38 Special rounds, so you have a lower recoil if you have arthritic hands, or if you're a little weak in stature, or whatever your excuse is to throw 38s into your 357 if you just don't want to worry about the power of your 357. There's a lot of different ammo types out there that you can use. Your revolver, you can even load it with, say, what's it called, snake shot, in the event that you got to dispatch a rat or a snake or something like that, and you don't want to put a 357 Magnum hole through your floor. ask me how I know about that. But long story short, the simplicity and the universality of your 357 Magnum revolver is one of the reasons why I think that this right here is one of the top tier firearms for the average person. Again, the average person is not going to be able, or the average person is not going to go out and actually train and use their firearm. They're not going to be able to properly comprehend the safety mechanisms and the actual mechanical mechanisms of that semi-automatic firearm to be able to use it reliably and quickly in a bad situation, unlike something like this right here, where they literally pull it from their drawer, start squeezing, and they just start blasting, I guess. I am not saying that this right here is better in terms of capabilities than a semi-automatic firearm. I am saying that this right here has the capability and it has the capability with the simplicity of allowing the average person to get the best bang for their buck in terms of their abilities with this particular firearm in comparison to something like a semi-auto. If you know how to work a semi-auto and you can do it effectively, by all means go with that. That is 110% the best route for basically anything. But if you're an average person and you're watching this and you've never even touched a gun before and you don't necessarily have the drive to go out and get a bunch of firearms training, you still have the right to keep yourself safe, keep your family safe and whatnot. Something like this right here, which is so simple that you don't necessarily need a whole lot of training to be able to do it. Again, I advocate you go out and you get that training, but with this you can at least comprehend how to use it without that training. That's why I say this right here is the best style of handgun for your average person. Again, I'm expecting hate on this video. There's a lot of people who are literally just going to the comments and start typing away and telling me that I'm wrong without actually watching the video and hearing me out. I'm not saying that those are more capable than semi-autos. I'm saying for the average person, those right there are a better option just due to capabilities and simplicity and the average person's ability to be able to understand how firearms work. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link down below. I guess I'll see you guys in the next episode. I'm actually gonna make myself some coffee. I'll see y'all later. I told you I was making coffee. I wasn't lying. I went and made myself some coffee. Okay, now I'm done. Bye.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.